Let's start with this topic in the context of our lives and overall health. A person went to the doctor with stomach pain. So my dear friends, today we've decided to systematically revisit and deeply explore the topic of body detoxification. One has stomach inflammation or heart inflammation, one has some kind of inflammation, and one wants to heal their stomach or heart. One takes a pill, the stomach inflammation goes away. Then the person goes home. A week later one eats something bad and again gets stomach inflammation. And one thinks, what kind of nonsense is this? Why the inflammation again? I thought I got rid of it. But the problem is that the inflammatory process in the stomach does not occur because there is some chronic inflammation or the stomach is somehow faulty. As doctors say, there was a regulatory failure in the stomach. No, the stomach is fine. Everything is normal. It just doesn't get enough energy to function. If a person is in a place where there isn't enough air, their breath will be coming in gasps. Take them out into the fresh air and their breath will be fine. One will revive and start running and jumping. Various things may happen. It all depends on the psychological state. Let me tell you the story about Parrot Gesha. In Israel, Parrot Gesha flew out of the window from the apartment above ours. By happy coincidence, when I was leaving the house to go swimming, I saw Parrot Gesha between two cats. One more second, and there would have been only feathers left of Parrot Gesha. I chased the cats away, picked up Gesha and put him in a plastic bag. He didn't give in easily. I had to cover him with a plastic bag, but I left the bag open. I treated him fairly. When my wife and I brought him home and took him out of the bag, he lay there with his eyes closed, as if Parrot Gesha had already died. He was barely breathing, just lying there. But then it turned out to be a psychological breakdown. Not because of a lack of air, but because he was very stressed. And when we played the voice of a holy man, thinking Parrot Gesha was passing away, we decided to play the holy man's voice to help the parrot's soul reach the heavenly planets. As soon as Parrot Gesha heard the voice of the holy man, he perked up and sat up, started chirping and began to pray. He joined in the prayer with the holy man immediately. Parrot Gesha came back to life. He had been lying like a corpse. His poor condition was not caused by lack of air. It was caused by a disruption of his mental senses. His body wasn't functioning simply because he had severe stress. He had never been put in a plastic bag in his life. For him, this was a completely unfamiliar life situation. Therefore, he was very scared and temporarily lost consciousness. This is called the psychological functions of body regulation. Therefore, pills don't help. Herbs only help partially. Herbs can affect the subtle energy body to some extent, but very weakly. So herbs help more. Acupuncture also can weakly affect the subtle energy body, but to some extent. It might be stronger than herbs. Essential oils also can affect the subtle energy body to some degree. When energetic blockages occur in the subtle energy body, there isn't enough energy for life functions to operate normally. Parrot Gesha had an energetic blockage and therefore lost consciousness, not because he wanted to lose consciousness. It happened because the subtle functions stopped working properly. The same happens in human life. Zones related to the regulation of the stomach are blocked, resulting in constant gastritis or hemorrhoids. Blood pressure constantly rises, or headaches occur, or the liver or heart hurts. And people think, now I'll take pills, everything will be fine. Nothing will be fine. Because the problem is in the subtle energy body, not the physical body. It's the subtle body that supplies energy to the organs, and then they work properly. If the energy isn't supplied, nothing will work properly. Let's discuss again what kind of energy is supplied to the organs and whether it is supplied only to the organs. If a girl wants to get married, wants to fall in love with someone, she goes out and looks at guys. Does subtle energy flow in this case? It does. Just the same. And it can also be blocked. Energy layers are connected with these functions. For example, if her emotional function is disturbed, she can't emotionally express her thoughts. But to get married, emotions are needed. She needs to behave very emotionally so that the energy of love comes to the young man's heart. Emotions are needed. If there are no emotions, how will the energy of love emerge? Or, let's say, thoughts. She reacts emotionally, but does she actually think? When a girl smiles, it doesn't necessarily mean she's thinking. The guy wants to check if she thinks or not. He asks her a question. If she keeps smiling and says nothing, although she looks pretty, there's nothing to talk about. He immediately fears, what kind of love is this? It's necessary for her to respond and to respond appropriately. For that, subtle energy is needed, which should flow into the third energy layer, not into the second. To keep her in a good mood and to prevent her from being moody, energy needs to flow well into the fourth energy layer. Otherwise, she won't get married. If she keeps being moody and depressed, who would want her? To have an appropriate perception of everything, energy needs to flow into the fifth energy layer. The same applies at work. Emotions, thoughts, mood, and appropriateness are also needed at work. And you also need to have a desire to go to work, because the first energy layer is responsible for our interaction with this world. You might have an energetic blockage there, and you might not even make it to work, because you don't have the strength. This is also related to blockages. Thus, energetic blockages have an impact on everything. The problem is that people start to identify with this, and society also contributes to this. For example, they say, you'll have migraines for a lifetime, you'll never recover from it. It's normal to live with migraines. Many people live with them. Just take pills and live normally. But migraines stem from energy deficiency, which is treatable. If you cleanse your subtle energy body, then you'll have no migraine. It just doesn't happen immediately because everything needs to be treated. Migraine means that some changes have occurred in your head and these changes need to be removed. Then migraines will be gone. Therefore, the subtle energy body should be cleansed first, then the physical body should be cleansed, and then there will be no migraine. The belief that one can never get married or one can't get a job will never be able to, or that one can't get rid of hemorrhoids because it's incurable, or one's joints hurt, how will one walk? All this signifies a thinking disorder. Joints are actually healed by movement, but not just by movement. It's important to know this. That's the purpose of our meeting today, to figure out how to live properly so that everything works well in your life. So that your body works, your relationships work, your activities work, so everything functions properly. For that, you need to live correctly. There's this concept of asceticism practice. Asceticism practice means the voluntary deprivation of something in order to achieve a goal. Asceticism practice allows us to cleanse the subtle energy body and enable the body to live normally, to live on the bright side. You might ask, why has God made it so that we can't cleanse our bodies without asceticism practice? Because God wants us to strive here to develop and to be active. God doesn't want us to be sluggish, people who always lie on the bed, eating and thinking that everything will be fine in such a state. No, my dears, you need to learn to live correctly. It means to perform asceticism practice, to pray, to perform asceticism practice, to do good deeds. Then a person develops. If a person doesn't push themselves, there is no development. Now, we move on to the topic that we are souls. I am a soul. I have a spiritual body. It's located here in the heart area. It's like a tiny spark. It has more energy than an atom that turns into the explosion of an atomic bomb. An atom explodes. How does it explode? It simply breaks its bonds. There's a nucleus, electrons. And this nucleus splits, divides into different parts, meaning the atom ceases to exist, it's gone. Because it ceases to exist, a nuclear explosion occurs. Just think about the amount of energy in a single atom that can blow up an entire city. Similarly, a soul contains so much energy that nothing in this world can destroy it at all. The Vedas say that the soul is indivisible and indestructible. A nuclear bomb cannot destroy a soul. It remains as it is, and it can't even be scorched, because it is a subtle energy called spiritual energy. And spiritual energy is what I am. As they say, my soul. Where is my soul? Dr. Torsunov. It's not your soul. You are the soul. Dr. Torsunov is a soul. This is a soul. I feel myself as a soul. Since the soul has a physical body, I feel myself an aging soul at 57 years old. But inside, I feel young. Outside, I look at myself and think, I'm already aging, my face is getting older. But the soul is eternally young. It never ages, never grows young, never dies. That's its nature. And how to determine that I am a soul, as Dr. Torsunov says? What a person wants most, that desire defines them. What does the soul want most? The soul wants to love. It wants to love everyone and be happy. What is love? Love is when the energy of love interacts with other people. And what is happiness? When the energy of love interacts only within me, with myself, that's happiness. I experience happiness from love. Happiness is when this energy inside me does something. When it interacts with others, that's love. But without happiness, there is no love. If a person is unhappy, then there's no love. What kind of love is it if one is unhappy? Love grants happiness. It's the soul's first desire. We can't live without it. Everyone wants happiness and love. No one wants to live without it. The second desire is eternity. Actually, eternity is the first desire. If you're dying, then you no longer need love. We just want to survive. Love ends, but we want to live. So, first of all, a person desires eternity. Everyone wants to live. Even a cockroach. It wants to live. It flees from the natural disaster of a human foot trying to squash it. Because sometimes the foot belongs to a person who doesn't realize that the cockroach also wants to live. The best option is to give the whole world to the cockroach. Meaning, if you don't want the cockroach in your kitchen, then wrap it in a cloth and throw it outside. It will fly, and you'll have given it the whole world to explore different countries. This is noble because the cockroach wants to live just like you. That's the correct way of thinking. Everyone wants to live, so love is the second desire. The third is the desire for knowledge. When your ability to live is disrupted and your ability to love is disrupted, then you scratch your head and think, what should I do? You think about what to do because eternity in your life is disrupted and you start having diseases. And you have no happiness. So love is blocked and you don't know what to do. Well, start learning. That's why we've gathered online here, to have more eternity in life and more happiness. So we are determining what knowledge is. Now we are defining what knowledge is. If I study, say, how many scales a centipede has on its back, will this increase my happiness in life? Will it increase my eternity? No. So this knowledge isn't relevant to us. Maybe it's important for the centipede to know how many scales it has on its back. Or maybe for a snake. But for humans, something else is important. Of course, we should study the whole world for a more global understanding and global happiness. But if you don't even know how to handle your own body, to understand it, then why bother studying anything else? Therefore, knowledge is relevant when you understand how to live long and happily. And that's the knowledge you will be receiving now. First, you must know that the energy of the soul spreads to all three bodies. It penetrates through the physical body. The physical body is also infused with this energy and wants to live. Every finger on our hands, toes of our feet, our ears, everything wants to live. Why? Because the soul wants to live, and it wants to live in this body. This is the soul's desire to live. It's not that the ear wants to live. If separated from the soul, it won't live. It will die and decay. It's the soul that wants to live, the soul that resides in the body, and it also fills our physical body with the desire to live. And the subtle energy body is also filled with the desire to live. It gets filled with desire to love as well. Suppose someone is being caressed. They feel so happy because their body interacts with the soul, and the body is connected with the desire to love. The desire to love also exists in the body. When I'm caressed, I feel good. It's actually the soul that feels good, not the body. Without the soul, the body is just dead matter. And the desire for knowledge also resides in the body, because the body knows how to function. This is very important to understand. The doctors say, your body can no longer understand how to function. They say, you have genetic disorders. What genetic disorders? Does the soul possess knowledge or not? If the soul possesses knowledge, then this knowledge is transmitted to the physical body. If knowledge can be transmitted to the physical body, then the body adjusts its function. This is a law that we don't understand. Because of this, we ruin our bodies, starting to feed it with all kinds of chemicals and other harmful stuff, simply because we think the body doesn't know how to function. Why do you think it doesn't know? It just lacks energy. Remember this, because this knowledge now will save your life, because fundamentally you are acting incorrectly. You start doing prolonged continuous movement, for example, and you say, it's making me feel worse. How can it make you feel worse when it fills the body with energy and the process of healing starts immediately? Why does it get worse? Because restructuring is happening. The body starts to rebuild itself. Let's say a handyman comes to do a job for you. You need your apartment renovated. You don't know how renovations are done. You ask the handyman, can you renovate the apartment? One says, I can. Go ahead. You leave the apartment for 3 hours. You come back. Everything is destroyed. Just everything. Walls are torn down, the ceiling, the floor are torn down, and you scream, "I asked you to renovate, and you've destroyed everything, the whole apartment." One is doing that to make it better. Just the same with our body. The liver gets sick and we panic, running to the doctor. But why does it get sick? Is the liver stupid, has nothing better to do than to be ill? No. It gets sick because it's restructuring its functions in the process of treatment. And why does it get seriously sick? Because you gave it some energy. Maybe you went for a walk in the forest, but then you stopped giving energy to it. And you say, "I walked in the forest, caught a chill, and now it's an exacerbation of liver disease." My dear, you just received the wind's energy, the liver started to get better, but then you didn't give it any more wind energy. This handyman in your apartment lost their temper because you don't understand that they're renovating and one just left. And you're sitting in this wrecked apartment saying, "This person destroyed my apartment," or "My liver function got messed up because of my contact with the forest." Your liver function isn't messed up. Your liver started to repair itself. You just don't have the knowledge to continue. You don't understand that you need to keep going back to the forest for the liver to be treated. If the exacerbation started in the forest, that's where you need to go again for it to recover. Because the liver received energy, started to repair itself, and can't finish because there's no more energy. And we're afraid to go there because we started having liver problems. We say, "I won't invite that handyman again because they destroyed my apartment." Another handyman comes and says, "I don't know what that person wanted to do, so I won't continue it. Only that previous person should be called back. No one else can help now." And so on. These things need to be understood. Now moving on. How does energy flow in our body, and how does it help all our organs and systems function? For this, we need to understand that these energy layers are not the only things present in our subtle energy body. When we talk about energy entering the body, you should know it comes from the surrounding environment, not from inside, like with an atom. When there is a nuclear explosion, energy is released from within. We receive this energy of eternity, energy of knowledge, and energy of love into our body as a result of our desire to live. It enters with the breath into the lungs. At the subtle level during the inhalation, due to our desire to live, 3 types of energy also enter our body. They flow through 3 powerful subtle energy channels. These 3 energy channels start from the crown of the head and end at the tailbone. They are distributed as follows. The central channel is connected with the desire to live. The most important thing is the desire to live. This central energy channel is called Sushumna. During inhalation, energy of prana enters through the upper energy chakra. This is a spiritual energy that comes from the spiritual reality. So, this energy enters the Sushumna, our energy channel, and then this energy of eternity is distributed through the energy channel. We have chakras, energy chakras. They are like energy substations. The energy then flows further through the chakras to all the energy layers. So the energy first enters the body through the Sushumna. There's another energy channel. It runs on the right side of the body. The energy of knowledge flows on the right side of the body. It's called Pingala. The Pingala is on the right side. The energy of knowledge flows there. And the Ida channel is on the left side. This is the channel through which the energy of love flows. This is important to know. Now we are studying how to fill these channels with energy. How can we ensure they are filled with energy? So, there are these 3 types of energies, and they fill our body in 2 ways, either by using the energy of nature or by asceticism practice. For example, if a person is simply spending time in nature, then the Sushumna channel begins to activate just from the fresh air when the breeze blows, or it activates from one being in the mountains. When one is in the mountains, just the presence there activates the Sushumna channel due to the energy of the mountains. And when a person finds themselves in a lowland, the Sushumna channel works weaker. In the mountains, it's stronger. In the lowlands, it's weaker. And when the wind blows, it also enhances the work of the Sushumna. This energy of eternity activates from fresh air and mountains, mainly from these energies. The energy of happiness activates due to the influence of the sun. The sun creates happiness for a person. So the Ida Nadi activates due to the influence of the sun. Therefore, women strive for happiness. Their Ida Nadi is more active, so they love the sun. But the sun overburdens men more. And the Pingala Nadi cleanses and activates through the energy of water. That's why men whose Pingala Nadi is stronger like water more. Women feel colder from water. Men like water more, while women tolerate it with difficulty, because women fill up with the energy of the sun, the energy of love, which is masculine energy. So, Ida Nadi reaches for masculine energy. Ida Nadi itself is feminine energy. Ida Nadi itself is lunar energy, but it reaches for the sun, meaning it fills with solar energy. And the Pingala Nadi is solar by nature, but it reaches for water and cleanses with water. It should be remembered that there are certain opposites. These opposites are necessary for the cleansing of the body in order to know how to cleanse the body. The elements of nature cleanse the body. Water cleanses the energy of knowledge. Although the energy of knowledge has a solar nature, it is purified by water. And the energy of love has water nature but is purified by the sun. For example, if there is no sun, the water gets dirty. If there is sun, it gets purified. It becomes clean from the energy of the sun. And so on. You need to understand all this. We are talking about purification now. And what is purification? Purification in this case means not just to fill these nadi channels with energy from the sun or water. They are filled with spiritual energy. Fiery energy flows in. It's called divine energy, Tejas. It is also connected with the sun. The pure divine Tejas is associated with the sun and it flows into the Pingala Nadi, the male energy channel. It is pure and doesn't need purification because it is spiritual energy. Tejas is spiritual energy. And Ojas comes from the energy of the moon, or the original energy of water. Ojas is the original energy of water. It flows into the Ida Nadi, on the left side. There is a central channel and two channels on the sides of the spine. The Sushumna is connected to the spine and goes along the spine. On the sides there are ganglias near the spine. On the right side is the Pingala Nadi. This is the solar channel. It burns with a bright fire. The cold, cool lunar channel is on the left side of the body. And this pure spiritual energy, prana, flows along the spine. The pure solar energy, the energy of Tejas, flows through Pingala Nadi. And Ida Nadi, the pure lunar energy, flows on the left side. These three channels do not need to be cleansed because spiritual energy flows through them and we do not cleanse them. When this spiritual energy is distributed through all the energy layers, cleansing is needed. Because there, in these energy layers, it starts interacting with the energy of our egoism. If we had no egoism, we would live for 200, 300, 500 years. And all this spiritual energy would work well. There would be no energetic blockages. Why do energetic blockages arise in the body? Because our activity itself, the way we act, if it is wrong, then God teaches us through blockages. He says, you cannot live with such an understanding of things. If you do not want to act selflessly, love everyone, give love to others, share knowledge, give your eternity to others, then you get energetic blockages. A blockage appears in the body. Why? Because the pure energy of eternity is befouled by human egoism. One begins to hoard their energy of eternity for oneself. Instead of distributing it to others, one keeps it for themselves. As a result, a person's desire to live is blocked by a subtle energy body. God says to him, whether you hoard or not, if you behave wrongly, I simply will not let you live. Your attitude will bring disease upon you, preventing you from living well. Nothing will go right for you. Misusing knowledge energy creates blockages in these energy layers linked to knowledge energy. All three types of energy flow equally through these energy layers. They all reside in these 5 energy layers. All three energies live there. The energy of knowledge, the energy of eternity, and blocks can form there. All three energies reside there. Knowledge, eternity, and energetic blockage can form. This means that there can be 3 types of diseases resulting from our interaction with life and the world. In each energy layer, for example, in the second layer, the mucous membranes, if the energy of eternity is blocked there. As a result, the mucous membranes become dry, the skin gets covered with a dry crust, and the movement of the energy of eternity is disrupted. If the energy of knowledge is disrupted, the mucous membranes become inflamed, turning red, and erosive gastritis occurs. Because the energy of knowledge is disrupted, it has a fiery nature. The energy of eternity has an airy nature, so it dries the skin. The energy of knowledge has a hot nature, so the skin becomes hot or inflamed. When the energy of happiness is disrupted and moves incorrectly, it turns into mucus. And as a result, a person develops mucus on the mucous membranes. Then polyps can grow, and this mucus transforms into more organized energy. into polyps, causing improper functioning of the body and toxins. This is how the energy of happiness, the energy of knowledge, and the energy of eternity turn into disruptions. Disrupted energies in Ayurveda are called doshas. The disrupted energy of prana is called doshavata. It's no longer prana, but a disrupted energy of prana. I call this dynamic tension. Why don't I call it doshavata? Because dynamic tension operates a bit differently. Doshavata is a concept that explains the interaction of this altered prana with the body, because doshavata is explained in terms of an already diseased body. But dynamic tension is the same as doshavata or altered prana, just a broader explanation. Dynamic tension can arise in your relationships with a person and at your work. Dynamic tension is a modified prana, and doshavata is also a modified prana that already affects the body. For example, dry skin is doshavata. It occurs under the influence of modified prana. Similarly, there is modified tejas, the modified fire energy, which turns into dosha pitta. Dosha means something bad, some bad qualities, and pitta means fire. Dosha pitta means that bad fire will saturate the mucous membranes, causing inflammation. And dosha kapha, kapha translates to mucus. So you see these energies are already described at the level of the body. Dosha kapha means bad mucus, bad air. Dosha vata, bad fire. Dosha pitta. That's why in Chinese and Indian medicine, all diseases were analyzed from the perspective of these three elements. The element of fire, the element of water, and the element of air. All diseases are related to these three elements. All of this was analyzed in this context. It is very important to understand how these energy layers are structured, to understand how to cleanse them, and how to cleanse the body. The energy layers are structured like, for example, there is a big box, inside it is a smaller one, then an even smaller one, and so on. We first interact in this life with the big box, but we still need to get to the fifth one. Therefore, all interactions of our body and our psyche always initially go through the first energy layer, no matter what we do. For example, we want to go outside. This desire to go outside interacts with the first energy layer. If there is a blockage in the first energy layer, you won't even want to go outside. For instance, a blockage of dynamic tension or a disruption in the energy of prana in the first energy layer will affect a person's desires. If I have a blockage related to the energy of prana or dynamic tension located in the very first outer energy layer, which is associated with disruptions in the energy of eternity, this means that my interaction with this world is blocked. Blocked means that I can't force myself. It's hard for me to do. For example, there's a strong wind outside. The wind is blowing and I'm in the mountains. You think, I won't go outside because it's windy. Why does this desire arise? Because this wind stresses my first energy layer. It's this destructive energy of the air, and it's not that a blockage has formed, but just an unpleasant tension. I won't go outside. This means that on the first energy layer, there are some improper, unpleasant interactions with this world. And why do they arise? Because my body is spoiled. It lacks the energy to handle the wind that's outside. The air energies moving outside should be adapted within my body. For example, is the sun good or bad? It's good. But if I were to fly to Venus to interact with the sun, do you know the average temperature on Venus? It's 250 degrees. In other words, I can't exist normally on Venus because there's too much sun. Venus is closer to the sun. And so I can't normally be there. I don't have the inner strength to withstand that type of temperature. Suppose a person arrives in Africa where the sun is very intense and they can't stay there because their body isn't adapted. Their energy channels and the energy of tejas can't move with such intensity through their energy layers, and it starts with the first layer. Therefore, a person's overheating starts from the outside. That is, a person simply doesn't want to go outside because it's too hot, or doesn't want to go outside because it's too cold. It's not that a block has formed, but the external layer of the sun tests them and says, I won't go outside. It will overload me. The interaction and the body already feels, it's not mine. I don't have enough strength. What is a formed blockage? A formed blockage on the first layer means that a person already has specific problems. For example, a person goes outside and they already have a blockage, whether it's static tension, energy of knowledge, or fire energy. It's all the same. Destructive fire energy is settled on the first energy layer. You go outside and you feel bad in the sun. Why? Because you have a blockage on the first energy layer and your interaction with this world through the sun is problematic. If you have a blockage on the first energy layer of dynamic tension, you will have problematic interactions with the wind and you will feel unwell in the mountains. And if your interaction with water energy on the first layer is problematic, then you will not feel good in the water. You'll say, I don't want to swim, that's it. If someone says, I don't want to swim, it means that water is blocked on the first energy layer. What does this mean? You should keep your body stationary and get into the water. But what kind of water should you get into? When someone says, I don't like to bathe or I don't like water, it means they need water. What kind of water? Warm. Why warm? Because you need to soften this blockage first, remove the tension from it, and acclimate the body to the water. You need to gradually remove this breakdown from the first energy layer. If the interaction with the sun is disrupted, then remove this damage with the energy of the sun from the first energy layer. Interact with the sun, not too strong. Gradually, you can then stay in strong sunlight. Or if a person doesn't want to go out in windy weather, he doesn't feel good or gets cold immediately and starts to get sick, then a person needs to walk in the fresh air. The first energy layer is associated with interaction with this world. And if described more seriously, it has a mental component of interaction and a physical component. The physical component is body temperature, a person's blood pressure, humidity, and everything else. The physical component of the first energy layer is the parameters of our interaction with this world. If a person is cold, for example, in terms of parameters, their body temperature is lowered. There are hot people, you touch their skin and it's warm. This is all connected to the first energy layer. Consequently, a hot person can better tolerate the sun. They're more adapted to the sun, but a cold person might overheat. Not just the person who is uncooled, but specifically a cold one who isn't adapted. However, they can easily live in the cold. So, the first energy layer indicates our adaptation to this world. Understandably, this also applies to people, because each energy layer carries both a physical and a mental component. Every energy layer of this box has both a physical and a mental component. This means if you can't interact with people, can't go out to meet people, it means the mental component of your first energy layer is suffering. It's hard for you to interact with society, with the community of people. If it's hard with wind, sun, and water, then the physical component of the first energy layer is suffering. The first energy layer isn't differentiated by nature. You can't explain it. Just that a person is reclusive, doesn't want to interact with people. It means there's energetic blockages in the first energy layer. And if he dislikes nature, fresh air, doesn't like to go out, prefers to stay indoors, then there's a physical blockage in the first energy layer. Well, more accurately, all blockages are mental because we are discussing energy layers. But in any energy layer, there's a zone that interacts with the body and another that interacts with the psyche. Each box has two zones. One interacts with the body, the other with the mental function. And if there's a blockage in the zone that interacts with the mental function, the person becomes reclusive. They don't want to interact with people. If the physical component is disrupted, a person's interaction with the elements suffers. They can no longer communicate with nature. I think everything's clear with the first energy layer. The second energy layer. It's the next deeper box, also having both mental and physical components. The physical component of the second layer involves the mental energy that fills the mucous membranes of the body. These are the mucous membranes of the nose, larynx, bronchi, stomach, genital organs, and all mucous membranes of the eyes and ears. All these mucous membranes are filled with energy from the second energy layer. This energy is responsible for the physical part of this second energy layer's half, which deals with the physical body. The skin is included as well. Everything related to the skin. For example, hair growth on the skin also pertains to the second energy layer. The skin itself is part of the second energy layer. Subcutaneous tissue and subcutaneous fat are also part of it. Not very deep, but right under the skin, there can be a layer of fat, which also belongs to the second energy layer. Nails are also part of the second energy layer. This is not the third energy layer. Nails on the fingers of hands and feet are part of the second energy layer. Body hair belongs to the second energy layer, but hair on the head is not part of the second energy layer. They are connected with the nervous system. This relates to the fifth layer of the human energy field. So when hair on the head falls out, it's different from body hair falling out, serving different functions. Eyebrows and hair on the head are connected to the nervous system. This is a deeper affliction. It's the fifth energy layer. If there's baldness on the head, it means the fifth energy layer is affected. So the second energy layer has a physical component, which we have discussed. Actually, the second energy layer itself doesn't have a physical component, it just regulates the physical body. The mental component of the second energy layer involves emotions. What is an emotion? It's how a person responds to the world. There are emotional people, meaning they react strongly to the world. There are unemotional people, meaning they don't really notice it, no reaction. And there is a normal reaction. This means the second energy layer is functioning cleanly. What is a normal reaction for women? They react emotionally to everything. For example, I am happy to see you. That's a normal reaction for women. For men, a normal reaction might be emotional, or it might not be. Generally, men's emotions are not as actively expressed as women's, so that's a normal reaction. But there can be an abnormal reaction when there's a blockage related to dynamic energy on the second energy layer. It hinders a person's interaction with the world. It means he reacts to everything phlegmatically, sluggishly. For example, everyone jokes, but he does not smile or laugh at the joke. Why? Because he feels it's funny, but he can't laugh, because he has a blockage of dynamic tension on the second energy layer. And this blockage of dynamic tension, the fact that he can't laugh, can also affect his mucous membranes. They become pale and dryness appears. So, the energy of the blockage can affect either just the mental function, or it can also capture part of the physical component of this second energy layer. Then, not only will the person's reaction be emotionally inhibited, but his mucous membranes might begin to suffer, or the skin might start to dry out. If your skin is dry, it means there's a blockage of dynamic tension on the second energy layer. Then, there's emotional interaction with incorrect energy of knowledge. So it seems that fate has played a role. All this happens through fate. Why do these blockages occur? Because you committed an emotional wrongdoing and a blockage appeared, or fate influenced it. A person did something wrong in the past and it just came back through fate. And your emotions become very sensitive. You react very emotionally to everything. It happened out of nowhere. You got up on the wrong side of the bed in the morning and reacted sharply to everything, very emotionally. And then your stomach hurts. It means it came from fate. And if you acted out, yelled at a loved one, this means you have an emotional blockage of this hot energy of knowledge on your second energy layer. You might say, it's all because of you, but it's your own fault. Don't yell at close people, and your stomach won't hurt. These are your problems. God will give you more for the future. He will insert this energy blockage into your fate, and you will answer for it later, not just now. Thus, all these blockages arise from three reasons. The first reason is, I did something wrong to myself. The second reason, I acted in a way that caused a reaction from other people towards me. For example, someone got upset, reacted emotionally, and then a blockage occurs on the second energy layer because of this. Hot emotional energy causes a person to become irritable from the wrong they've done to others. If someone got upset without a reason, then those are their own problems. We won't suffer because of that. We only suffer for our own actions. Either they act through my personal action, or through other people's reactions to me, or it arises from fate. Those are the three scenarios. The reaction of nature might be, for instance, I arrived in the city, and it really weighed on my psyche. I felt terrible fate for this city. This was when I first visited this place in 2002. Imagine that was 12 years before 2014. I got there and felt such an energy, such a closure, such a strong feeling of tension. It went through the energy of eternity. And I thought, kind people, run from this place. You shouldn't live here any longer. That was really the thought I had. Why? Because the earth there was damaged. They were extracting coal from the earth. And coal is a certain energy of the earth, good energy, which it needs for life. Oil, for instance, is the blood of the earth. It's her blood. People suck it out, the earth reacts, and we get a bad fate from it. We develop blockages because of this. Coal as well, it's also the energy of earth. For example, we have subcutaneous fat that warms us, and coal warms the earth, making it warm so it doesn't get too cold. And oil, that's the earth's blood. I arrived, and because a lot of coal was mined there, it cooled the earth, and as a result, there was a disturbance in the energy of eternity. My body got stiff. When I arrived there, I got sick. My energy of eternity closed up, meaning there would be violence in this place after some time. I understood there would be violence because we hurt the earth and it was giving us feedback. Just as a way to understand things, we can offend not only people but also nature, like when forests are cut down without reason, then expect blockages in your body and sickness. But I'm just giving an example of how these blockages arise from an incorrect lifestyle, our wrong behavior in this world. Blockages on the second energy layer, static blockage, dryness on the skin. An emotional barrier occurs in the psyche. A person wants to live happily, enjoy everything, laugh, but he can't because he has an emotional barrier since he spoiled others' emotions. He treated people poorly, behaved rudely, harshly. Rudeness is the disrupted energy of eternity, not anger, but rudeness, such harsh behavior. I told you to be quiet, stand, lie down. You know, sometimes warrant officers behave like that. Sing, stand, 1, 2, 1, 2. He thinks everyone must obey. Such harsh behavior, what does it lead to? It leads to emotional dullness. Why does emotional dullness arise? Well, because you behave harshly and therefore your emotional reaction is weak. When I lectured policemen, all of them had a similar blockage of dynamic tension on the second energy layer, and everyone would have skin dryness and stomach ache. Basically, I went to give a lecture at the police academy. I started joking with them, but they sat there as if I wasn't joking, looking at me all serious. I thought, what on earth? 500 people were sitting there. I was lecturing at the police academy. I joke with them, and they look at me and don't react at all, as if I'm not there. I think, well, that's how things are going on their second energy layer. Such an entrenched blockage. Naturally, there will be problems with mucous membranes, bronchi, and skin. Immediately, when people behave rudely, it naturally affects them emotionally. A blockage in dynamic tension will follow immediately. If people behave too emotionally, then on the contrary, a blockage in static tension will appear on the second energy layer. And if people exhibit negative emotions, saying everything is bad, and everything is already bad, and he still says everything is bad with me. When everything is bad, you should pretend everything is good. Then there will be balance. But if you keep saying things are bad and people are already feeling bad, then God will punish you and you'll have toxins on your mucous membranes. Well, toxins on the mucous membranes mean what? An infection starts because their structure gets disrupted immediately. And if the toxins are deeper, you'll get moles on your skin or polyps on your stomach. On the mucous membranes, it means that your negative emotions have become dense. You keep going around complaining, so get polyps in your intestine and stomach. Do you understand what the second psychic energy layer is? The third energy layer is connected to a completely different concept. It's about our thoughts, reflections, logical chains, what we think about, what we ponder. All of this is the third energy layer. This is where our thoughts reside. It's a deeper mental function, a deeper part of life, and with the third energy layer, our thoughts are connected to blood vessels, muscles, and joints, but not all of them. All blood vessels are connected to the third energy layer, but there are structures through which blood flows that we do not call vessels. For example, there's the aorta, or what we call a major vessel, but this is located in the fourth energy layer. The heart is also in the fourth energy layer. Pulmonary arteries, such large vessels coming from the heart, or for instance, heart valves, all belong to the fourth energy layer. The nervous system inside the heart corresponds to the fifth energy layer. All vessels, including small ones, belong to the third energy layer, but there is gradation of vessels. Capillaries, for example, those very tiny vessels, are on the second energy layer. For instance, there are very small vessels inside the skin, which are also part of the second energy layer. Mainly, all vessels are located on the third energy layer. However, there are some specific exceptions. Similarly, all minor joints of arms and legs, knee joints, elbow joints are on the third energy layer. All body muscles are also located on the third energy layer. But there are joints located on the fourth energy layer. These are the hip and shoulder joints. These joints relate to a deeper energy layer. This is an exception. They belong to the fourth energy layer. All other joints are on the third layer. And let's consider bones. They are also on the fourth energy layer. The pelvic bones, skull bones, bones of the arms and legs, rib bones. They all belong to the fourth energy layer. But all surfaces of joints, vessels, and muscles are on the third energy layer, referring to body muscles because the muscles inside the stomach belong to the second energy layer. So there is an exception. There are capillary vessels in the muscles inside the joints, small muscles that contract the vessels. These two belong to the third energy layer, and those inside the skin are on the second energy layer. Thus, our thoughts have an impact on the vessels, meaning thoughts have an impact on the vessels, joints, and muscles. For instance, a disturbance in the energy of eternity in thinking provokes harsh, cruel thoughts. As they say, a categorical person has categorical thinking, meaning a person sees only two poles, either black or white. There's nothing in between. Categorical people think, execute everyone or pardon everyone. They don't find any middle ground. Categorical people know that they will have a dynamic blockage on the third energy layer, and they can have either the subtle or physical component of this energetic blockage. If one has both the physical and subtle components of the blockage, the person starts to have mental blockages, making it hard to think. Thoughts slip their mind. One thinks, what was I thinking about? It escapes their mind. One thinks, I wanted to say something, but I can't remember. Memory is linked with thoughts. Memory function is connected with thoughts. A person speaks and suddenly stops, thinking, what did I want to say? I can't remember. This means one has a dynamic blockage in their head. Therefore, their thoughts are interrupted. The flow of thoughts is blocked. Why? Because their thoughts are rigid. They think categorically, execute everyone, or pardon everyone. Then the thoughts will be blocked in their head, and it will be hard to think. Their memory will falter. Because they think incorrectly, they need to think kindly. For example, is Dr. Torsunov Russian or not? It's even hard to say. Because he already loves the whole world, loves all Ukrainians, and loves Georgians too. When I was in Georgia, they fed me delicious flatbread, even though I don't like such food. But when they were feeding me, I loved that food at that moment. And now I'm almost Georgian, I even talk differently. Because I really like Georgians, they are very nice and kind people. Well, if I'm to be judged by the fact that I came from Russia, like the time we went to get a Georgian bank card. Now, Russian bank cards aren't serviced worldwide, so one has to pretend to be Georgian. And when we went to the bank and asked, do you speak Russian? The bank employee said, no, I don't speak it, speak in English. We spoke in English, and then he warmed to us and started speaking Russian with us. He didn't want to speak Russian on principle, because all Russians are bad, he thought, but we turned out to be good, so he started speaking Russian normally. Because he saw that we were normal people, Russian souls who don't want to fight anyone and love all people, especially Georgians. So, he started speaking Russian with us normally, but before that he couldn't. Why? Because he didn't like it. Because he had a categorical attitude towards Russians. I understand him, but I speak Russian although I am Jewish. That's just how life turned out. So you shouldn't be so categorical towards me, at least God thinks so. If he didn't think so, then he wouldn't block these categorical thoughts, and their thoughts wouldn't stop. But there could be even worse problems, like having vascular spasms. And why do vascular spasms occur? Because people think categorically, and that can cause problems in the vessels, like vascular dystonia or something worse. Also, blood pressure can rise, migraines occur. This happens because of vascular spasms. When vessels constrict, then you get joint pain. And when muscles constrict, if these muscles run along the spine, it can pinch a nerve to one side. Then your leg may get immobilized immediately, all due to categorical thinking. This is dangerous, so it's essential to think kindly of everyone, wishing everyone happiness, otherwise something might get locked. For instance, hemorrhoids are also about the vessels. Hemorrhoids aren't just something protruding. There's a vessel in the rectum. Why does it protrude? Because it becomes too tense. The same goes for varicose veins in the legs, all stemming from categorical thoughts. Or, if joints hurt and a person can't walk, then soften your thoughts. Be kind to everyone. Stop dividing people into friends and foes. Be kind to everyone. There might be another energy in your thoughts, the energy of resentment and anger. If a person harbors energies of resentment and anger, then their joints become inflamed, their vessels heat up, and their body tone drastically reduces. Their vessels, so to say, become hot. And if someone has very hot vessels, then blood clots can form. Clots in the vessels arise from the heat. Meaning if a person has very hot vessels, the blood coagulates, then a clot forms and it can kill the person, causing a stroke or heart attack. If a person is too angry, too resentful, then the joints begin to inflame. The joints become hot. Inflammation occurs in the joints. There may be an energy of despair. This energy has an impact on the joints, while resentment has an impact on the vessels. Therefore, learn to react correctly to this world, because God punishes people for incorrect thoughts and incorrect emotions. One may also have depressive thoughts like everything is bad, making even a person's logic depressive. When a person has depressive thoughts, atherosclerosis develops in the head. Accordingly, atherosclerosis occurs when a person can't make sense of things. And why does it occur? Because of depressive thoughts. A person constantly thinks badly of everyone, has suspicions in their mind, which is why they have head diseases. They can't understand anything because of bad thoughts. Such thinking leads to atherosclerosis. If a person succumbs to gossip, bad thoughts, they'll end up having atherosclerosis. It means their vessels will be clogged with fat and they won't be able to make sense of things. It'll be like this: "Doctor, I have this problem." And the doctor says, "Well, that's trivial." The person forgot what they had, this problem. The doctor says, "That's trivial," meaning he also forgot that he is a doctor, forgot what he asked and says, "Well, it's trivial." This means that both had depressive thoughts, which led to problems with their thinking. 3 disruptions on the 3rd energy layer. Look into it and study what causes them for you. The 4th energy layer is about disposition or mood. Will I attend the online seminar today or not? And why won't you attend? They'll be explaining how you live. You should attend it. No, I just can't. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. This is called disposition, when the 4th energy layer is suffering. The 4th energy layer is about disposition or mood. I'm in a good mood today or in a bad mood. When the energy of happiness moves well through the 4th energy layer, you are in a good mood. If the energy of happiness doesn't flow well through the 4th energy layer, you will be in a bad mood. If the energy of knowledge moves poorly through the 4th energy layer, then the person becomes short-tempered. One goes around nitpicking at everyone. One may be in such a mood that one wants to tell everyone what they are doing wrong, and the person looks for ulterior motives. This means that the flow of the energy of knowledge is disturbed within the body. And when the energy of eternity is disturbed, one doesn't understand how they're feeling. Maybe they aren't feeling anything at all. That means something is blocked. One can't figure out how they're feeling because everything inside is blocked and they don't feel anything. When someone asks, "How are you feeling?" one replies, "I don't feel anything." This means that the energy of eternity is jammed and one doesn't know how they feel. It's difficult for them to tell because there is an energetic blockage. When the mood is bad, it's clear that the energy of happiness is disturbed. If the mood is good, the energy of happiness is flowing well. And if the mood is sensitive and you find yourself nitpicking at everyone, it might seem like one is in a good mood, but everyone else seems to have problems, which means the energy of knowledge is disturbed and there's turmoil in your head. You think everyone else has problems, but really the problem is with you. The energy related to one's mood is a deeper function than thoughts, just so you understand. It's not emotions. Emotions are reactions to something, but mood shows how you live. It means you always feel like this. Emotions arise when someone is startled by something surprising and then one goes back to normal state. That's emotions. But if someone is always walking around with a wry face, that shows their mood. They're always like that, no matter when you see them. That means it's their mood. And mood has an impact on the internal organs. It's a serious issue. It can cause damage to your liver, kidneys, lungs, heart, bones, and even your skull and what's inside the head, not the nervous system, but the brain's membranes. That's already the 4th energy layer. Many organs are located on the 4th energy layer. The spleen is there. The fallopian tubes, female organs, are on the 4th energy layer. The uterus is on the 3rd energy layer, but the fallopian tubes are on the 4th layer. This means that a woman's thoughts have an impact on the uterus. One girl was dying from uterine cancer and I asked her, "What do you think caused your illness?" She said, "I hated my mother." She was very religious. Somehow she had this hatred towards her mother. She developed uterine cancer and passed away at a young age. hating her mother and suffering from a tumor. A disruption of energy flow occurred in the third energy layer, the layer of thoughts. There was hatred in her thoughts. Perhaps her mother did something wrong and she couldn't forgive her. Mood, however, is deeper. When one has liver pain, kidneys are failing, constantly needing dialysis, this indicates a wrong or intensely stressful mood. What does a stressful mood mean? It's about haste, a person running around frantically, always rushing and never catching up. A stressful mood means there will be spasms in the organs, liver, kidneys, lungs, heart. There are degrees depending on how tense the mood is. If it's an irritable, sensitive mood, expect inflammation in the liver, kidneys, thyroid, and pancreas. Each organ is associated with specific character traits. For example, the heart is associated with vulnerability. If a person takes things to heart very sensitively, the heart will suffer. The brain suffers when a person does not adhere to a proper daily routine, doesn't rest appropriately, and overworks. The liver suffers from willful violations like anger. If a person's willful functions are disrupted, the liver suffers. All this is linked to mood, an overly assertive mood. By assertive mood, I mean an inappropriate, destructive attitude towards others. Of course, there are nuances here that even a long lecture wouldn't cover entirely, but I believe you are gradually grasping and understanding the topic. Today's lecture is dedicated to diagnosing energy layers, understanding why we get sick and what we do wrong. Next, we will delve into detoxifying the body in detail, specifically how to do it, the nuances of asceticism practices we follow, and everything else. We might even cover some of it today. Let's examine the disturbances caused by the three types of energy at the fourth layer. There are psychological disturbances, as I've mentioned. Frantic, tense moods. This means the energy of eternity is suffering. Someone is always rushing or constantly tense, unable to rest or relax. Or after work, one comes home being all tense. That's all related to mood. And the wife asks, "What's wrong with you?" He says, "Leave me alone, I'm stressed, tired from work." That's the mood. Wife, "Why is your mood so bad?" And he's exhausted from work. So there's an energetic blockage forming in the fourth energy layer, which will have an impact on the internal organs. Naturally, what will happen if one is so tense? One will have spasms in their internal organs. There will be pain in the liver, kidneys, spleen, pancreas, and the thyroid will suffer. Organs will suffer, the brain included, depending on what other character traits are connected to this tense and hectic mood. If a person has a sensitive mood, is discontent with everyone, offended, angry, constantly dissatisfied, then one will constantly have inflammatory processes in the internal organs. If a person is in a depressive mood, one is not in the mood all day long, one is depressed. Then, what will be happening to the internal organs? Tumors will be developing. Tumors in the liver, kidneys, heart tumors, and the spine, which is related to the fourth energy layer, the hip and shoulder joints as well. The mood affects all these parts of the body. Thus, the fourth energy layer is very much connected to one's mood, and therefore a lot depends on it. So be careful about your mood. What state of mind should a person have? Joyful, good, accepting fate. If you want to live, then live and enjoy life. What thoughts should one have? Kind, brave, and happy thoughts. What should the emotions be? Joyful, kind, happy. People should set themselves up every day because every day brings a challenge. Time strikes you on the head, and now you must recover, overcome difficulties, try to set up correctly, pull yourself together. That's what you need to do, my dear friends. The fifth energy layer, the deepest one, is responsible for very deep functions in the body and can be analyzed through interactions with different energies. For example, when interacting with the energy of eternity at the fifth energy layer, we're talking about subtle functions. If the energy of eternity flows properly, then a person develops a correctly functioning sense of victory on the fifth energy layer. This fifth layer is connected with a person's faith and desire to live. A person has a certain state of mind, thoughts, emotions. One interacts with this world, but overall one has the desire to live. We all want to live, but how this is manifested within you is very important. The desire to live should be active. One should have an active life stance. You should prove to the world that you want to live. If, for instance, you are clinging to something by your hands, you have two choices: to scramble up or to fall. The desire to live means to climb, to crawl up, to strive, and never to despair. This is the fifth energy layer. And when the energy of eternity interacts with it, a person develops a will to overcome fate, known as the will to victory. I can do everything. I won't break my oath. This means one strives, moves forward, overcomes difficulties. It means the energy of prana and the energy of eternity are functioning correctly on the fifth layer, helping the person overcome challenges. One has faith. Faith is linked to the fifth energy layer, connected with the desire to live. Having faith, one believes everything will be fine. One can overcome anything. When the fifth layer interacts with the energy of happiness, the person is generally joyful and cheerful. One is joyful. The fifth energy layer is connected with the energy of happiness. A person has trained their fifth layer to interact with the energy of happiness, making them joyful. We know this tune without words. La 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 la. Oh wow. So, one is joyful. The energy of happiness moves well on the fifth energy layer, and one has the desire to live. One overcomes obstacles. When the energy of knowledge functions well on the fifth layer, a person is very calm, balanced, able to accept fate, to accept life's challenges. One is brave and perceives everything from a standpoint of knowledge. One has a very calm inner state, believing that everything will be okay. Let's say a boss at work whose energy of knowledge functions strongly. Everyone comes to their office to complain. There's a meeting going on. Everyone speaks out while the boss remains calm. Why is one calm? Because the energy of knowledge on the fifth energy layer functions well, and one does not despair, does not puzzle over things, calmly perceives everything. Consequently, the fifth energy layer interacts. It means faith in victory, the energy of knowledge, acceptance of fate, joyfulness, and accordingly, an adequate perception of the world. Because when a person perceives the world inadequately, inventing their own reality, it means there's a disturbance in the fifth energy layer. Their deep understanding of things and their ability to interact with this world suffer. Accordingly, the fifth energy layer has both a subtle component and a physical component. For example, a person's autism means an affliction of the fifth energy layer. What kind of affliction? Subtle. The person is introverted and does not react to the world. Everyone smiles at them, but one doesn't smile back. Why? Because one cannot react. Their fifth energy layer is blocked on a subtle level. And when a person suffers from cerebral palsy, that is also caused by nervous tension, a constant tension in the nervous system, which tenses the muscles. They relax and tense again. Why? Because there is an energetic blockage in the nervous system on the fifth energy layer. So, there can be two types of blockages at the level of the nervous system and psyche. And accordingly, if the psyche is tense, for example, then the person is in a psychological trap, so to speak, pressed against the wall, standing, afraid of everyone. This energy of fear is an affliction. One has a strong fear of life, of existence. The person feels like in a trap. This means that their fifth energy layer is afflicted. The energy of eternity is disrupted. This feeling of fear stems from disrupting the energy of eternity on the fifth energy layer. Accordingly, there will be spasms of the nervous system and disturbances in energy flow. One has numbness of fingers and other parts of the body, meaning the operation of the nervous system is disrupted. Spasms occur. Disruption in the movement of nervous tissues and various types of paralysis occur. All this is caused by fear. It paralyzes a person. There are three deepest emotions connected with the fifth energy layer. The emotion of fear causes paralysis in the nervous system. The emotions of fear also cause phobias. A person does not go outside, stays at home, and imagines situations. If the energy of knowledge is disrupted, a person exhibits psychopathy, hysterical reactions, reacting very hysterically to everything, exaggerating all situations greatly, hyperbolizing everything. When they're told something, they exaggerate it 10 times more. This means that the energy of knowledge on the fifth energy layer is overheating. They have a hypertrophied perception of reality, perceiving everything in an exaggerated manner. It means there's an affliction of the energy of knowledge on the fifth layer. And when the energy of happiness is disrupted on the fifth energy layer, a person experiences deep depression. They have no desire to live. They do not want to live. They have no faith that everything will be okay. They are disheartened and everything in their life feels bad. Nervous systems and hormonal functions are also located on the fifth energy layer. Hormones include issues like female and male infertility. Pituitary damage leads to obesity, making a person excessively overweight. The pancreas deals with hormones, diabetes. The thyroid gland is essential for hormonal function and, if affected, impacts health significantly. These organs, like the pancreas, can suffer tissue damage or hormonal regulation issues. These are different issues. Hormonal regulation is a deeper problem related to the fifth energy layer, while tissue issues concern the fourth energy layer of all organs. The nervous system suffers. This can lead to nervous paralysis, immobility of the body, and weakness. All these are damages at the fifth energy layer level of the nervous system or mental function. How are these energy layers connected with our life activities? A person has 5 psychological energy layers and energies that interact with their personal life and work. There's the human body, personal life, and work. Each of our 5 energy layers has a psychological component, each unique, comprising both mental and physical aspects. The psychological component works in 2 directions. It affects a person's business sphere of life and their actual life. When it acts on the business sphere, it is mainly associated with the energy of the Pingala Nadi channel. The business sphere is linked with the right side of the body, and the Pingala Nadi influences this. Personal life, intimate relationships, close connections are influenced by the Ida Nadi. Actions are linked to energy layers, because psychological functions are located within these energy layers. Emotions are found in the second energy layer. Thoughts are in the third. Mood is in the fourth. The desire to live and perceptive adequacy are in the fifth energy layer. These can influence personal life. Blockages can occur here and in professional activities as well. It's crucial to understand that this isn't selective. It happens as it goes. For example, a blockage might affect personal life by 60%, health by 30%, and work by 10% in any given energy layer. The energy distributes negatively. Energy might strongly affect personal life. For instance, static tension in thoughts is located in the third energy layer. Thoughts on the third energy layer, thus static tension, exist in the psychological regulation zone of our mental functions. In our everyday life zone, our social behavior zone, this blockage means that a woman, when interacting with a man, has a blockage at the level of thoughts. What could be the scenario? Suppose she has a blockage in her thoughts due to dynamic tension. She will think, it won't work out. Everything will be bad. Well, not bad, but it won't work. A dynamic blockage on the third energy layer goes into her psychic sphere. She can't interact normally because she feels like nothing is working. When her energy of knowledge at the level of thoughts is active, she is sensitive towards men. Her thoughts are vulnerable. Her husband said something and she overthought it 10 times. Her interaction with him is vulnerable. On the third energy layer, there's a blockage affecting her personal life. If a negative energy affects her third energy layer, her energy of happiness suffers, and in such cases, her thoughts become very negative. For example, a woman falls in love, and she immediately thinks something bad about this person. Her thoughts are toxic on the third energy layer, leading to constant mental strain. The same for a man. If it's about work, it's a different story. His thoughts become tense during work. It's hard for him to focus. For instance, he can think well about personal life, but as soon as it's about work, his brain starts to overheat. He has a mental blockage on the third energy layer. There's a dynamic blockage. His energy of permanence suffers, and it's very hard for him to think during work. He can't concentrate. His thoughts scatter. And all this is treated with asceticism practices. A person starts walking, cleanse 3 energy layers, and your working becomes easy. Why? Because you've broken through the blockage. Practical knowledge is so powerful. Or suppose you have sensitivity at work. You think, it's not working, nothing's working. Then, you have a blockage of the energy of knowledge on the third energy layer on a mental level. Consequently, you face problems at work. You constantly experience some sensitivity, your thoughts are anxious. For example, I went to the bank today to get a bank card. I had little time before my work started. It seems I have something with the energy of thoughts on the third energy layer in this energy layer because I always panic. I'm not going to make it. Everyone says, Dr. Torsunov, calm down. Let's do everything now. Everything's fine. Don't worry. This means there's something with my energy of knowledge. Something is blocking it a bit on the third energy layer. There's something there. I've noticed it about myself. If I have depressive thoughts at work, then obviously I can't accomplish anything and so on. If you're always whining, then they just take you and fire you from the job. That means this blockage has influenced your fate. You got fired. Why? Because you don't treat your blockages. People ask me how blockages affect fate through our behavior. If you're always sad and angry, for example, you got fired from work, people start to think, is this person a bad person? No. He's naturally soft and fluffy, but slimy and smelly because he doesn't practice asceticism. That's why. No one wants to hire him. No one wants to be with him. Today, we have a very important topic. We'll be discussing the methodology for body detoxification. You can use this methodology to help yourself, as well as to help your friends and relatives. Because generally, all diseases are treated absolutely the same way. There's a certain sequence that should be recommended to people. If people follow this sequence, they will get rid of all chronic diseases. So the sequence is as follows. First, we remove static tension. We do it in 2 stages. We remove it by using water, because water softens static energy. Though it doesn't impact blockages much, it significantly reduces overall static tension and generally makes it easier to perform other static exercises afterwards. There are 2 stages. First, a person should stay in water, in a bathtub, pool, or natural body of water, and then proceed with static exercises. We recommend people do simple static exercises. The simplest usually include the butterfly pose and standing pose. People should choose the exercise that's easiest for them. Some people intuitively feel it. For example, it may be easy for someone to sit in the diamond pose, but difficult to do the butterfly pose. In that case, they should practice the diamond pose. So, you offer the person the exercise that is comfortable for them. If it's easier for them to do the standing pose, let them stand. If it's easier to sit in a butterfly pose, let them sit. So, one should start with static exercises, then do dynamic exercises, and then one should proceed with fasting. You should never disrupt this sequence. Even if you've been practicing fasting for a long time, you still need to follow this sequence. Suppose you've been practicing fasting for a while and you say, my body is cleansed. I won't have any overloads while fasting. That's fine. You can continue your fasting the same way you used to do it. But you still need to start doing static and dynamic exercises in sequence. Start with static exercises, then move on to dynamic exercises. Because if you do dynamic exercises without doing static exercises, you'll experience significant overload during dynamic activities. And this overload will occur on static blockages, not dynamic ones. When someone runs, they feel both static blockages and negative tone, as well as dynamic blockages. But it's the dynamic blockages that get treated during running. All other blockages just lead to problems. They create problems. When a person runs, for example, one doesn't typically have significant issues with toxins. They just start to be rapidly expelled from the body. But if they run while having static tension, then very big problems can arise, leading to a significant increase in pulse, body heat, and weakness. They might even collapse during such a run. So it's best to remove static tension first, then tackle the dynamic tension. And to remove static tension, one should follow a certain sequence of actions. In this sequence of actions, there are also specific clear instructions. For example, if someone has never been treated and they have very strong static tension, how can we tell? They are highly sensitive, irritable, they have inflammatory processes in the body, can't stand people, have allergies, skin diseases, and so on. These are all signs of severe static tension. If a person has strong static tension, they might still try the standing pose, for instance, near a wall. They stand by the wall for 20 minutes and say they can't stand any longer. What does this mean? First possibility, they have a blockage on the second energy layer. Second possibility, their overall static tension is so immense that they simply can't stand. And they can't do static exercises because they have very strong static tension throughout their entire body. The only way to help them is baths. It's important to understand that a person who is really overloaded with static tension can't even lie in cool water. They can't lie in water at room temperature of 22 degrees Celsius. They need heated water up to 28 degrees or even 30. So, if a person is shivering even at 28-degree water, it's a sign that this water isn't suitable for them. Make it 30 then, but 31 degrees is the maximum temperature you can use because overheating starts at 32 degrees. A person can still comfortably withstand the 31-degree water, but it's warm, not just tepid. Generally, a person can tolerate it fairly well, but it won't be as effective a cleanse. If a person stays in 31-degree water, it will take 14 minutes to cleanse one energy layer. This means the process of cleansing will take about an hour and 10 minutes to an hour and 20 minutes. And the removal of static tension will be very, very weak. The colder the water, the harsher, deeper, and more effective the cleanse. These rules are all important to know. So, 28-degree water is normal, it's slightly cool water, and it doesn't cool the person down practically at all. Of course, there will still be some cooling effect. So, after cold or cool water, even at 28 degrees, it's better to take a warm bath so it doesn't feel cold afterwards. But generally, for people with serious illnesses, especially severe diseases of the joints, liver, kidneys, internal organs, in other words, those who are seriously ill, it's always necessary to start removing static tension with the most comfortable water temperature. That means the first thing to prescribe to people are warm baths, at a temperature the person does not consider hot, meaning they lie in the water and feel neither hot nor cold. This is the best option for starting the cleansing because otherwise it would overload the person. If they have inflammatory processes in the body, they will start healing abruptly because of the reduced water temperature, which is unfavorable. Therefore, it's comfortable to start cleansing, say at 28-degree water, which is very comfortable for cleansing. Naturally, it doesn't deeply cleanse static tension, but it significantly weakens its intensity. And this is the best water to start in if the person is very ill. If they are healthy, they don't need much, maybe sit in the water 3-4 times, and then they can do static exercises. But if someone is seriously ill, they should sit in the water for 2-3 weeks. And the time spent in water and the static exercises schedule is simple. It doesn't change with the number of energy layers cleansed. The schedule is this: do static exercises every 3 to 4 days to start treatment. Then, if you're already trained, you can pray every day in the diamond pose or lotus pose or butterfly pose or kneeling pose or simply while standing. So during prayer, you can also remove static tension just the same. There's no difference. Of course, the difference is immense because prayer is your salvation. If you just cleanse your body like this, it's uncertain where you'll spend this energy gained from asceticism practice. Maybe not where it should be, and your life will be ruined. But if you channel it into prayer, if you pray along with static exercises, it will be very effective and beneficial for your destiny. Therefore, combine static exercises with prayer, and you can do them daily for an hour and 5 minutes without any problem. There will be no overload. But if you do dynamic exercises the same way, you will definitely be overloaded over time, and some health problems may arise. So, we start with static exercises. Suppose someone asks, "My joints are severely inflamed. Can I do static exercises?" Yes, you can. You just need to adjust the water temperature. If the water temperature causes you severe chills, say, you just enter the water and start shaking. It means the water temperature isn't tolerable by your body. And generally, there's not much point in staying in it. Exceptions are very cold water bodies. Say water is 8 to 7 degrees up to 11 degrees. If a person enters such water, any person, one will definitely shiver initially, but only for a while. Maybe for 2 to 3 minutes. Then one will relax, and that's it. One will just experience difficulty breathing and nothing else. Everything else will be fine. Right now, you see, I'm a bit chilly because when someone has run cleansing 5 energy layers and then sat in icy water cleansing 5 energy layers, naturally, the sensation of cold stays for a while, but it eventually passes. That day one should keep extra warm, maybe use 2 blankets instead of 1, and it'll be fine. When someone starts cleansing, using water, taking baths, definitely, if they have joint disease, the joints will start to ache. There's nothing to be afraid of. Don't think, I'll cool down too much, ruin my health, then Dr. Torsunov won't take responsibility, and I'll feel worse, needing to take anti-inflammatory drugs. Of course, if you have joint disease and you lie in the bath feeling shivery and continue to stay there, that's not right. But if you have joint disease, you lie in the bath without shaking, feeling a mild coolness, and cleansing energy layers. Then, coming out of the bath, you definitely won't catch a cold, and your joints will gradually start aching. And this joint ache means they are being restored. Is Valentina planning to engage in prolonged continuous movement?
Dr. Torsunov, we're going with our club to stand by the trees. A whole team is going. It's going to be great. And we'll be listening to you.
That's great. Excellent. I'm glad to see you. Say hello to everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Torsunov.
All right. You see, you can advise everyone to get treatment, like they opened a clinic in Odessa using Dr. Torsunov's method. We're helping all Ukrainians get back in shape to ensure everyone survives, thrives, and is able to help others. Now, I've told you the methodology, how it should be done, and you may advise everyone the same thing. Listen to people talking about the diseases and all the diagnoses, and then tell them what to do. And you'll have the assurance that everything will be all right. Joints will definitely ache. Why? Because they are being restored. But people get scared, stop taking baths. If you start giving energy to the body, there's no turning back. It's like saying, I'm a little bit pregnant. Well, you're not a little bit pregnant, you're just pregnant, so there's no turning back. If you're pregnant, you need to carry a baby and give birth. You can't be a little bit pregnant. So just as you can't start treating yourself a little bit, you've started treatment, lying in baths. You have joint disease or a diseased liver, inflamed skin or something else. If the skin is suffering, you can apply oil. 3 oils you can use are white sesame oil, coconut oil, and ghee, clarified butter. You can apply it to the skin when you're getting into the bath. If the skin is cracked and inflamed. You can also lie in the bath, but first you need to apply the oil so the skin doesn't suffer. So keep doing it for 3 weeks. First lie in the bath. Everything will ache and throb. Don't be afraid. Treatment is happening. If you start and immediately get scared and take anti-inflammatories, then you're interfering with the treatment. It's like they're renovating your apartment and you go around sticking the plaster they rip off back on. What kind of renovation is that? So the body creates inflammation to heal and you're removing that inflammation. What kind of treatment would that be then? You don't need to do anything special. Let's say you started lying in the bath, your joints are aching, it's nothing to worry about, you've set the temperature right, just lie there cleansing 5 energy layers. When is it risky? It's when you start to feel cold and get out of the water. Don't let that happen, you need to remove all the blockages. Next stage is static exercises. That means maintaining a stationary position of the body. Here, stability is key and so is sequence. Let's say you begin with the standing pose. There's no need to invent any supernatural exercises like wanting to master the diamond pose. The diamond pose is very intense. You might be able to endure 5-layer cleansing in this pose only after a year or 2. It really clears out the body's energy. The simplest is the butterfly pose and the standing pose near a wall. You stand next to a wall. If you feel bad, lean against it until you feel better. Then continue standing. If you absolutely can't manage it, if your head spins, you feel nauseous and unwell, even after standing for just 26 minutes, then stick to standing every 2-3 days for 26 minutes. As time goes on, you can stand for longer. Just remember, when doing static exercises, it's crucial to understand the rules. And the same rule applies to dynamic exercises. Keep the standing pose for 13 minutes. If you feel you can't stand for 26 minutes, then just stand for 13 minutes only. Don't interrupt the exercise in the middle of the energy layers. Because there are blockages, and if you interrupt in the midway, you'll just create chronic diseases. Stand for 13 minutes. Once you've managed to stand for 13 minutes, then stand for 26 minutes. Once you've managed 26 minutes and feel that you can continue, then keep the standing pose for 39 minutes, cleansing 3 energy layers. Once you've mastered cleansing of 3 energy layers, then aim to stand for 52 minutes. Having mastered 52 minutes, then aim for 1 hour and 5 minutes, and don't start cleansing from the beginning again on the second round. Though I don't know, maybe if you do the process of cleansing 3 or 4 times in a row, some super abilities might be unlocked in the body. Once I saw a man giving an interview. He got severely frostbitten in Siberia. Frostbite means his static tension was removed. Then he said, I survived, but afterwards all my teeth fell out and grew back anew. And he showed his new teeth. He's about 40. I thought, that's cool. I paused the video and saw this situation in my mind, where he was in the past and I saw that maybe around 7 times. His body cleared up sequentially. 5 energy layers once, then 5 energy layers twice, 5 layers 3 times, 5 layers 4 times, 5 layers 5 times, 5 layers 6 times, 5 layers 7 times. So, some kind of reserve capabilities of his body were activated. So, since he was in a good mood all this time and wasn't planning to die, almost freezing in the forest, so when he came home, he thawed out, his body was restored, and then new teeth grew. Why? Because it seems that excessive stimulation of the body works this way. But he either had to die or grow new teeth, one of the two. That's why I don't conduct such experiments. I once went to India, ran about 17 kilometers around the sacred Govardhan hill, cleansing 5 energy layers. The hill circumference is 21.5 kilometers in total. So, I ran cleansing 5 energy layers, then 1 more layer and another half a layer. So I cleansed 1.5 layers in addition. So, at these additional 1.5 layers, my pulse shot up like this. Normally, my pulse stays steady during a run, but at the end, it went up, meaning my body was fussing. It didn't like that I went for a second cleansing round. So I thought if my body doesn't like it, I shouldn't force it. I have this experience, but I never ran more than 21.5 kilometers and don't see much point in doing so. But overall, as I've told you, anything can happen if we go for a second round. But still, I advise you not to do this. So once you've learned to practice the standing pose for 1 hour and 5 minutes, that's enough. No need to show off. Because most likely it will just be overexertion of the body and that's it. And when to start dynamic exercises? For example, if you've started doing the standing pose, stick to the schedule. If you do the standing pose, cleansing 2 layers, a total of 26 minutes, you can do it every day. If you do the standing pose to cleanse 5 energy layers, and if you are not a trained person, it's better not to do this every day. It's better to do the standing pose cleansing 5 energy layers once every 3 days. The most frequent should be every other day or once every 3 days. Why? Because during this time your body is being treated, it also needs time to recover. If your blockages start to clear, the body needs a little time to rest before continuing. That's the system, and to do dynamic exercises you should follow this rule. If you can do the standing pose for 26 minutes cleansing 2 energy layers, then you can also walk cleansing 2 layers. It's not mandatory. It's better not to combine these practices on the same day. If you have just started asceticism practice, it's better not to combine 2 types of asceticism practice in one day, because it will lead to stress. For example, if you do static exercises today, tomorrow you can walk to cleanse 2 energy layers. But if you do static exercise cleansing 2 energy layers and walk to cleanse 3 layers, you will definitely have problems. Such practice is wrong. Therefore, as much as you can do static exercises, you can do dynamic exercises. 2 energy layers are cleansed by dynamic exercises in 48 minutes, multiplied by 2, which is 90 minutes. So you can walk for 1.5 hours every 2 days. Because when we do dynamic exercises, there should be a schedule. We can't just walk 4 hours every day. That would be an immediate stress. The slower the dynamic blockages build up, the harder they are to clear, and the more rest between exercises is needed. Toxins in the body build up the slowest and accordingly are the hardest to eliminate. You need to practice fasting for several days to eliminate them. And accordingly, the frequency of fasting should be less. So that's the sequence. Static tension accumulates the fastest. So generally, people have the highest static tension compared to other types of tension in the body. But it's also the easiest to remove. However, it must be done on schedule. Otherwise, it interferes with clearing everything else. Let's say you practiced the standing pose and then decided to start walking and stopped standing. It means that in 5-6 days, the static tension will build up again and cause you problems. Therefore, everything must be done according to a schedule. Once you start treatment, you're in it. You'll have to keep treatment constantly. Because for some diseases, it takes 2 to 3 years of performing asceticism practices to get rid of them completely. And you might think to do it for 6 months and then rest, but during your rest, some disease which is not completely treated will become chronic, so you need to keep the treatment. For example, I study my body. There's a clean body, an unclean body, and an absolutely clean body. I run, I do static exercises, and gradually my body cleanses more and more. Now my body is absolutely clean up to the 3rd energy layer. This means that all the blockages are removed from there and they don't even activate anymore. My body is absolutely clean up to the third energy layer, but there are still some issues on the fourth and fifth layers. I've been doing this cleansing for 7 years. I started at 50. Just imagine, if you start doing it by schedule from a young age, after 7 years, you'll be practically rejuvenated. You will have such a young, happy body with absolutely no problems in life. So you do static exercises, then add dynamic exercises. It's very important to understand that you still need to complete the static phase, which is 1 hour and 5 minutes. If you don't reach that time thinking, I can't, it won't work for me, then you create a dangerous situation. Because there is a phenomenon that if you consistently remove static tension from only the first 2 energy layers like any other tension, toxins gradually accumulate faster than usual in the deeper energy layers of the body. It's like your body is rebelling. If you don't cleanse your body at all, toxins spread throughout your body. They accumulate if you only cleanse the first 2 energy layers in the body and ignore the rest. Then the accumulation happens faster than usual, which can lead to a disbalance and exacerbations of diseases. So don't delay. For instance, if you do the standing pose for 26 minutes, do it properly. If you can't do more, continue at 26 minutes, but when the time comes, move up to 39 minutes. If you added 1 energy layer for static cleansing and it's hard for you, then you definitely need a break of 3 to 4 days. Because if it was hard for you to stand or sit in a butterfly pose for 3 energy layers, and if the third energy layer was excruciating for you, you suffered, endured, howled, then you definitely have a serious blockage there. If you've broken through it once, don't be afraid to keep breaking through each time. The rule is, if you were standing for 26 minutes, then for 39 minutes and managed that, the third time it will be even harder to stand for 39 minutes than the first, but then the fourth, fifth time it will start to get easier. And after 6-7 times, it will be easy to keep the posture. Once you've learned to stand for 39 minutes, never go back to 26 minutes. You need to always stand for 39 minutes now. Once you've mastered 39 minutes, move on to 52 minutes to the fourth energy layer. Once you've mastered 4 energy layers, endured and survived the flare-ups for 4 energy layers, move on to the 5th energy layer. What can you expect? Suppose you were cleansing until the 3rd energy layer. The 3rd energy layer is usually the toughest because we all think, work with our heads, so there are the most blockages on the 3rd energy layer. That's my practical experience. Therefore, naturally, the 3rd energy layer will be the hardest to break through, everywhere, whether in dynamic exercise, in static, or in fasting too. So you stood for 39 minutes, it was tough, but that's okay. What to expect? Your vessels will begin to heal, you might experience dizziness, joints will start aching, muscles will ache, but don't be afraid, healing is happening. Continue to stand for 39 minutes. And by this time you can start walking correspondingly on 3 energy layers. You can confidently walk for 2 hours and 15 minutes. If you've learned to stand to cleanse 5 energy layers, then bring your walking up to the 5th energy layer too. How to start walking? Well, once you've learned stationary position of the body, start walking. If you've mastered 2 energy layers, start walking until the 2nd energy layer is cleansed. You should walk at a brisk, pleasant pace. Don't walk too slowly. Don't walk too fast. Cleansing always means something pleasant. How is our practice different from those where people practice fast walking? They always go to exhaustion. They try to go faster, aim for results. They constantly check their watches, what their breathing is like. They need results. They constantly push themselves. But we don't push ourselves. We try to walk joyfully, calmly, and happily. Our goal is health, not results. You should look at the schedule, learn to use the calculation module on the website torsunov.ru. I think it is also available in other places. You need to learn how to use it. For instance, in walking, it includes mileage and time. There you can see the number 3 and 1/7. This means you've cleared 3 energy layers plus 1/7. So you check the time, you check the mileage, and you see how much you've cleared. If you're doing stationary position of the body on 2 energy layers, then you can't do dynamics on 3 energy layers. First we increase statics, then dynamics. If you're doing statics on 5 energy layers, then you can also try walking on 5 energy layers. How do we do dynamics? If you clear 1 energy layer, say you walk for 48 minutes, then walk every day. Don't hesitate. 48 minutes is not long. If you walk for 90 minutes, that's 1.5 hours, then walk every other day according to schedule. If you walk to cleanse 3 energy layers, then walk every 3 days. If 4 energy layers, then every 4 days, and if you want to cleanse all 5 energy layers, then walk every 5 to 6 days. Can you run instead of walking? Why is it better to start walking first? Because it's better to walk 4 hours and cleanse 5 energy layers right away than to run and cleanse 2 energy layers, for example. It's better to cleanse the entire body right away. Better to perform stationary position of the body for 5 energy layers right away, and better to walk and cleanse 5 energy layers right away. Why? Because then the body will heal harmoniously and calmly. There will be no imbalance between the energy layers. Otherwise, some energy layers heal and others do not. Your body can start to inflame. Therefore, it's better to do everything fully right away. If you've learned to stand for 1 hour 5 minutes on 5 energy layers, then go ahead and walk on 5 energy layers once every 6 days for 4 hours. If you want to transition to running, that's also fine. There's a very simple rule for that. Just look at your running speed and how many energy layers you clear while running. For example, run half an energy layer or 1 energy layer at a time. It's better to run 1 energy layer at a time. That means you walk to cleanse 5 energy layers and replace 1 energy layer with running. You can start by running, then walk until 4 energy layers are cleansed. Or first walk 1 energy layer, then run 1 energy layer, and then walk for 3 energy layers. This way, a person can gradually transition to running. If you want to run, please do. Transition to running gradually, meaning you just need to add running to your walking and deduct that time from your walking. If you, for instance, walk 4 hours on average, that's the average pace. In 4 hours, a person cleans all 5 energy layers while walking, but decided to run for 1 energy layer. After that, you just need to subtract the extra walking time. Suppose your run is 22 minutes and your walk is 48. Then you have a 26-minute difference. From 4 hours, subtract 26 minutes and you need to walk 26 minutes less. And if, for instance, you run for 44 minutes, then you have a 52-minute difference. This means you need to walk 3 hours 8 minutes, including running. Overall time decreases. Should you transition to running overall? If you're not 80 years old and don't have serious disabilities, and if you don't have any contraindications like missing a leg, then I recommend everyone to start by walking for quite a long time, maybe 6 months. Learn to walk briskly on 4 or 5 energy layers, and then gradually transition to running. Why should you transition to running? Because cleansing through walking and cleansing through running differ significantly in terms of removing deep toxins, deep problems from the body. Suppose you have a fibroid or some cyst and you want to dissolve it. It will be difficult to dissolve it by walking. But running will make it much easier to dissolve. Yet dissolution means combining fasting with prolonged movement. If we're dissolving cancer, then fasting is combined with prolonged movement. Otherwise, just prolonged movement without fasting won't cure a tumor. Of course, if you're treating cancer, also tie spruce roots to your left hand and left leg. This will also help dissolve cysts and everything else. And dissolution always goes better, of course, if a person runs. Here's where you can be crafty. Now I'll sprinkle a little of my Jewish savvy into your consciousness. It's a distinctly Jewish style of body detox. Suppose you have a fibroid, and the fibroid is on the 3rd energy layer. You need to cleanse more intensely there. But if you can't run to cleanse 3 energy layers, you walk 2 energy layers, then run on the 3rd energy layer, and continue walking for 2 energy layers. You run for 1 energy layer, but while doing so, you dissolve the fibroid, because you ran where it was necessary. That's the Jewish ingenuity. You need to understand where and what needs to be done, and then everything will be fine. So if there are diseases, you can run and cleanse more deeply. Suppose you have vascular issues, run on the 3rd energy layer. If your thyroid is affected, run on the 4th energy layer and walk on the other energy layers. In this way, you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Use your intellect too, but overall, it's best to learn to run on all 5 energy layers in the future over time, because then your body will be capable of transitioning to another level of existence. Let me explain. What does a bad fate mean? When a bad fate comes and presses down on your life, a person may suddenly experience high blood pressure, increased pulse, or some other kind of mental or nervous system tension. And if a person has learned to perform asceticism practices at a higher level, instead of just performing a stationary position of the body, it's also important to understand that if you've learned to stand on 4 energy layers, don't stop there. Start doing more complex exercises, try the diamond pose and then even the lotus pose, move on to more complex ones. Because when fate strikes you with static tension and hits hard, why is it instant death? Why do people die from it? For example, I was lecturing in Georgia and I was told about a girl who was living normally until her blood vessels become inflamed and she suddenly died from thrombosis all over her body. Why did this happen? Because static tension overwhelmed her fate so severely that her blood vessels couldn't cope. But if a person does static exercises in a strong posture, no fate can lead to premature death. Because the body can withstand energetic loads. And these energetic loads come through exercises, through asceticism practices. Or a person runs, not just walks. And if some nervous system overload occurs, the blood vessels endure, the body endures, the heart endures. Because the person trains and can withstand the most severe overloads, whether nervous, psychological, or energetic. Thus, a person withstands it. What is static tension? It's when a person cultivates a motionless posture. For example, someone gets into an accident. If a person has done serious static exercises, an accident is essentially a static shock to a person. Then as a result, a person survives. A person got COVID. It's a dynamic shock to the body. He started running after COVID and that's it. He healed and post-COVID syndrome gone. In 2 weeks, no post-COVID syndrome, everything restored. And recovery also means tissue regeneration. Why don't lungs recover easily? Why don't alveoli regenerate? Because there's a lack of energy in the body. If you struggle after post-COVID, it is hard to breathe, but you started running as you used to. And just like that, everything restored itself within 2 weeks. Everything begins to regenerate and recover. Lungs recover, bronchi regenerate, and you're back to having a healthy, normal body. Remember, everything in the body can recover if it's given energy. The entire body can rejuvenate up to an advanced age. It's not true that if kidneys are damaged, they can never recover. That's for those who don't cleanse their bodies, who don't engage in asceticism practices. All my vertebrae in the lumbar region have recovered, although they were heavily damaged by vibrations. Now, I have a perfectly healthy spine, despite so many flights that should have left me disabled. But no, everything is healthy and fine. After you start running or walking properly, you can begin fasting and perform other asceticism practices. When you start a new asceticism practice, you don't know if your body is attuned to this practice or not. If it's not, overloading could lead to serious health problems. For instance, if your body isn't adapted to static exercises and you decide to do it for 26 or 39 minutes straight, you might faint, just stand and then collapse. Because it's very important to understand that for many people, the switch hasn't flipped in their bodies. So, the rule for everyone is this. You can immediately lie in water for 5 energy layers, no problem. But if you've never done stationary position of the body in your life, start with 13 minutes and observe yourself. If standing is simply hard for you, if you barely manage and suffer, it means your body isn't tuned to static treatment. But stand 5, 6, 7 times for 13 minutes each, and if you find standing for 13 minutes easy, it means your body has tuned in for static cleansing. And if it has, even for 2, 3, or 4 energy layers, start doing the same for walking. Say you're puffing, feeling it hard to walk, then your body isn't tuned for dynamic movement. Then walk 7 times for 48 minutes each, feeling yourself getting brisk and easier. Then start walking for 2, 3, 4, and 5 energy layers. The older the body, the slower and more carefully you should add asceticism practices, gradually. I started with running right away. I don't like dragging things out. I started running, but if I were to start over now, rewinding 7 years back, knowing what's right, I would start with walking and gradually transition to running. Because it's better to cleanse immediately for 5 energy layers than to add one by one. And if you can't walk for 5 energy layers, then walk as much as you can. There's no other way out, especially with age. Initially, I ran 500 meters, then more and more, and today I run 17 kilometers with young guys and girls, all due to training. But if a person isn't tuned in, if the switch doesn't work, and a person decides to run, even just to cleanse 1 energy layer, it could be dangerous for his health, potentially causing serious injury. It's important to understand what it means for the switch in the body to be flipped. It means the body is already set up to draw energy from the environment and heal. Many people simply have this function turned off, so they try to run and can't, or they walk and can't keep going. First, you need to activate this function so that walking feels joyful and happy, and then you can start increasing the distance. If you walk like you're dragging a heavy load and feel it's hard, you're forcing yourself, then your switch isn't flipped. Keep walking until it switches. You are a living being after all. Your body will eventually tune itself to heal and recover. The same applies to fasting, for instance. To start fasting, begin with intermittent fasting. If you tend to overeat at night, there are two types of intermittent fasting. If you overeat at night, then you should eat at noon and not again until the next morning. Why? Because otherwise, it won't work for you. You binge eat at night. You need to just drink a lot of water in the evening and not let yourself eat at all. Because if you sit down to eat, you'll end up overeating again. It's like a law of nature. There's nothing you can do about it. If a person can't stop themselves in the evening, it's better not to eat at all. Then they can somehow control themselves. And the second option, if you like sweets, something sweet to eat in the evenings, but you don't binge, then you shouldn't eat in the mornings. Try to replace sweets with dried fruits, honey, and then don't eat in the mornings, only eat at lunch. If you do intermittent fasting for 9 or 10 days and one day you feel like you don't want to eat, you feel fine, you didn't eat in the evening and it's not a big deal. Then your body has already switched to solar nutrition. That means it has started detoxifying. Solar nutrition is a type of diet that immediately removes toxins from the body, so you can continue fasting for 1 day, 1.5, or 2 days. Just know that where there's a toxin blockage, fasting will be very tough, especially on the first day, the first time. So be prepared and start gradually. If you've already learned intermittent fasting, start with a 1-day fasting. Take a very light breakfast without grains, just a light vegetable breakfast. Not like you've gorged yourself like a pig and think you can last until the next breakfast. That's not fasting. When you're crawling around grunting, thinking you're fasting, no, you've just stuffed your stomach for 24 hours. That's not fasting. Fasting means you have a light breakfast and then the next breakfast is just as light 24 hours later. Then you can have a normal meal for lunch. That's a 24-hour fasting. A 24-hour fasting cleanses 2 subtle energy layers. 12 hours of fasting cleanses 1 energy layer, then another. 12 hours of fasting cleanses a second layer. But if you have polyps in your stomach, the stomach is on the second energy layer, and polyps mean you need fasting. And you also need to wear fir tree roots. You should walk to cleanse at least 2 energy layers, but better 3. If you have stomach polyps, just in case, cleanse 3 energy layers. Better to walk to cleanse 3 layers. And also cleanse at least 2 layers by fasting, but preferably 3. That's 24 hours of fasting. If you have any type of cancer, it's best to practice fasting on Tuesdays or Thursdays. Because cancer dissolves especially on hot days. Those are Tuesday and Thursday. The hottest day is Tuesday. So it's best to eat on Tuesday morning, then eat on Wednesday morning. That's 24 hours of fasting. If someone practices intermittent fasting like me, I've been on an intermittent diet all my life. By the way, I haven't yet reached those 24-hour to 36-hour fasting. I'm up for anything except starvation. And why? Because I lead a very stressful life, constant travel and everything else. But I've gone without breakfast every day for 25 years now, and I don't eat for 16 hours every day. And I have a toxin blockage at the beginning of the second energy layer, but I managed to clear it. 16 hours fasting removes these toxins every day, so I'm basically fine. But overall, I think I will gradually move towards 24-hour fasting. If a person practices fasting for 24 hours, it can be done once a week, 1 day a week without food. If one practices fasting for 36 hours, it's comfortable to do this every 2 weeks. This is a comfortable fasting. There may be comfortable fasting and extreme fasting. Extreme fasting is also necessary because there are extreme illnesses. If a person's cancer has just begun, they can practice fasting for 36 hours once a week. This would be an extreme fasting. It will be challenging, but it's necessary for thorough cleansing of the body. Say a person has cancer on the 3rd energy layer, like a uterine tumor or renal pelvis tumor. The renal pelvis is also on the 3rd energy layer, any vascular tumors as well. Or if someone wants to dissolve hemangiomas, then one needs a 36-hour fasting. It can be done once a week. This would be an extreme fasting, but it provides a stronger effect. So there is comfortable fasting and extreme fasting. Extreme fasting is necessary only when you need to dissolve something in extreme life situations. A comfortable fasting could be done for 24 hours once a week, for 36 hours every 2 weeks, and for 48 hours every 3 weeks. The maximum fasting is 2.5 days. You can practice fasting for 60 hours once a month. Extreme fasting involves fasting for 36 hours once a week, 48 hours every 2 weeks, and 60 hours every 3 weeks. But the most extreme is 60 hours every 2 weeks. Of course, you can't do it more often than that. But even every 2 weeks, a 2.5 day of fasting may be a bit too much for the body. When is such very long fasting needed? It's sometimes necessary. Typically, toxins accumulate longer and more superficially in the body. Static tension accumulates the fastest. That's why everyone is nervous, irritable, sensitive. Therefore, it's easier and quicker to do static exercises. You can do them more frequently and start the process of cleansing. Dynamic tension accumulates slower than static tension. With age, accordingly, it takes longer to cleanse dynamic blockages and remove tension. Static tension can be removed from the body, say, in a month, but dynamic blockages need to be cleansed for 5 to 6 months. If you're running cleansing 3 energy layers, that doesn't mean you can remove a dynamic blockage in 1 month. It will take 3 to 4 months to cleanse. Consequently, toxins take even longer. It takes longer because they accumulate over a longer period, but mostly they are not deeply located. Generally, toxins form on the 2nd and 3rd energy layers, so a 24 and 36 hour fasting is generally the most optimal. But there are different cases sometimes. For example, epilepsy. Epilepsy means there are toxins on the 5th energy layer. So if someone wants to get rid of epilepsy in adulthood, they need to learn to practice fasting for 2.5 days. Or say, a brain tumor, tumors of the nervous system, nervous tissue, or some hormonal tumor like a pituitary tumor. For severe cases, you need to do fasting for 2.5 days, cleansing 5 energy layers. That's 2.5 days. Cleansing of 4 layers won't help in this case. Or one has bony lumps. The bone is on the 4th energy layer. So if you don't practice fasting for 2 days, you won't get rid of it. Or if you have a liver cyst. And if it's a liver cyst that isn't vascular but involves liver tissue, then you need to practice fasting for 2 days to get rid of it. In other words, we can't always help ourselves with fasting for a day or 36 hours. Sometimes you have to do fasting for 2 days if you want to recover. But overall, I don't recommend everyone to undertake a 2.5 day fasting. Of course, if you want to live to be 100, then no problem. That's your personal choice. But if someone is generally healthy, there are other options to consider. Since I'm up for any challenge except fasting, hence my Jewish blood worked its way through, what did I do? I learned to detox with sunlight all 5 energy layers. So, I studied this in Israel, where the sun is very strong. Under intense direct sunlight, when the heat is the strongest, detoxification occurs within 25-30 minutes. But it's unbearable for human health. It's unbearable for a normal person. Starting from 35 minutes, one can endure the sun, but with difficulty. In Europe, the sun is weaker. And there, it probably won't cleanse 1 energy layer in less than 45 minutes. The sun is more gentle there. So, if you want to cleanse 5 energy layers by using the sun, multiply 45 minutes by 5. It turns out it takes roughly the same time as walking. For instance, if you live in Europe and decide to do cleansing by using the sun, walk for 4 hours without a hat in the open sun on sunny days. You'll get a 2-in-1 benefit. This is very good because dynamic cleansing combined with cleansing by using the sun is very effective. If you cleanse 5 energy layers by using the sun, it removes all toxins from the body at once. It's very convenient. When you start cleansing by using the sun, you can see exactly where the blockages are. When the sun hits the toxins, say at the beginning of the 2nd energy layer, you immediately feel like the sun is overheating you. You might feel a bit nauseous, as if you're going to get a sunstroke soon. Like the song goes, but I'm not crying, not tearing up. And you keep staying in the sun. Time passes, the blockage clears, and suddenly it feels good in the sun again. Initially, you can sunbathe for about 40 minutes to cleanse 1 energy layer. In Europe, it's roughly 45 minutes. Start with 45 minutes, staying in the sun during summer, then proceed to 90 minutes. After that, it's better to combine it with walking, because when a person walks, the sun cleanses more gently. Or you can also combine it with water. You can stand in water, but you won't stand in it for 3.5 hours. Cleansing combined with water is also good, for example, standing in water under the sun with your eyes closed. It's a great combination because it cleanses static tension, but you don't get cold in the sun. Even when we stood in an icy mountain lake, the water was, I think, around 9 degrees Celsius. The cleansing process was quick. I didn't time it, but it was quick. Maybe we stood there for just 15 minutes. And the sun really helped. It shone on us, and it wasn't cold anymore. The sun also helps cleanse the body. Of course, fasting for 2.5 days isn't feasible. Sure, a 2.5 day fasting cleanses much deeper than the sun, but the sun also removes toxins. It's important to understand that. So I just took it upon myself in Israel to learn. I first stood in the water under the sun, and then got used to the sun. The cleansing by the sun began in my body. Then I did it while running and just casually, and I cleansed 5 energy layers periodically. My routine was like this. I'd run for an hour and 50 minutes, then stood in the water for 50 minutes, and then walked home. In total, I would cleanse 5 energy layers by using the sun. So, on those days, I would cleanse 5 energy layers through running, 5 layers by using water, and 5 layers by using the sun. It was great. So if you like fasting, you can periodically practice fasting to cleanse 2 or 3 layers. I give lectures and travel a lot. It's difficult, of course. If I do a lot of fasting, I'd go crazy. Well, I started cleansing my body by using the sun. It's a fantastic, excellent cleanse of all 5 energy layers. It also gives me such joyousness. I feel very powerful energy in the body. So I recommend that too. If someone wants to cleanse 5 energy layers by fasting, that's also great. But first, you need to remove static tension from all 5 energy layers, then remove dynamic tension from 5 layers. You need to work this out well, doing it at least 7 times. Then you can start such deep fasting. Otherwise, the body will malfunction. It will be a mess. Now we are moving to a very important topic. Suppose you ask, Dr. Torsunov, I have hemorrhoids. What should I do? And I'll tell you what to do, just so you get some practical experience. What advice to give to people in different life situations? Because all sorts of cases happen. Someone has a severe disease. Can they do body cleansing or not, and how? Before we get to that, I want to give you some practical information that will also help you a lot. Let's talk about this. Suppose someone had a stroke and one leg is paralyzed, and one wants to cleanse their 5 energy layers by dynamic exercises. But one can't walk because one leg doesn't work. In this case, there are wonderful human inventions, like say, an elliptical machine. An elliptical machine is a device where you hold on with 2 hands and your 2 legs are on the pedals. So one leg doesn't move, but you use both hands and one leg, and the other leg moves passively. That's also possible. This too is a form of dynamic cleansing, and it can smoothly cleanse 5 energy layers. How do you determine the cleansing speed on an elliptical machine or other equipment? Suppose you decide to cleanse your body doing bends or squats. Or let's say you decided to cleanse while cycling, although it's not the best option, or on some other equipment. How do you determine the speed of cleansing? There is a rule for this. First, go for a run or a walk outside. Check your average pulse. There's such a thing as an average pulse. You should get one of those watches for running or walking. They're relatively cheap. Look at the parameters it shows. You'll see your average pulse, the distance you've covered, and the time it took. Take that distance and time, put it into our calculation module, make the calculations and see how many energy layers you've cleansed during that time and distance. Then you should understand this rule. During this time, you check your average pulse. Let's say your average pulse while walking is 100 beats per minute, or maybe 90. Let's say around 95, 100 during active walking. Suppose 100 beats. Now you don't know the cleansing speed on the elliptical machine. Remember, if you reach 100 beats per minute on the elliptical machine, and how is this done? Suppose you're moving on an elliptical machine and watching your watch. Say your pulse reaches 115 beats. Keep it at this pulse. And here's the rule. If you continue training on an elliptical machine at 115 beats, at the same time interval you used to reach 115 beats while walking, you'll achieve the same level of cleansing. You can't measure distance on an elliptical machine. You're essentially staying in one place, so there's no distance to consider. But there is time and there is pulse, so we measure the pulse. And how do we measure it? We've established it experimentally. While running, my average heart rate is 135. And I decided to use an elliptical machine because let's say I went blind or something else happened to me. And I want to keep living, just like everyone else on earth, and I continue working with my pulse. You see, there can be various situations. Maybe one has a sore leg, or let's say people have sore joints, and they can't run or walk outside because the load on the joints is enormous. And on an elliptical machine, it's very easy to move. Or let's say a blind person, how would they walk on the street? So there's this pulse rule, and a person can begin prolonged movement. Even if initially someone helps them by guiding them by hand, and they walk a certain distance, then they check the pulse at that distance. And they remember the pulse rate at this distance and calculate how many energy layers have been cleansed. How is this determined? By using a specific program, you set the distance and the time it took, and the program calculates. For instance, you walked a certain number of kilometers, and a certain number of layers of the human energy field have been cleansed. Because the same number of energy layers will be cleansed at such a pulse if you spend the same amount of time on the elliptical machine. You got the rules? What is this rule for? Well, maybe someone wants to cleanse their energy layers on the elliptical machine and at the same time train their arms. And then you will have an exact understanding of this. On a treadmill, cleansing happens just the same way as when you run on the ground, with just one condition. If you raise the incline of the treadmill by about 1 degree. Because the treadmill's position is straight, it can be inclined, and you roughly incline it by 1 or somewhere between 1 and 2 degrees. And such a position is similar to running on the ground, then the load on the legs will be the same, and you will maintain the same speed. For instance, if you run or walk on the treadmill at the same speed as you would usually do outside, the cleansing speed will be the same as outdoors. Everything is the same. This is a bit of information about how to calculate the cleansing speed when training with fitness equipment. If you're doing, let's say, a workout and don't know how many energy layers you're cleansing during it, but the same rule still applies. You should know your average pulse for a certain distance of walking, and you should maintain this average pulse during the workout. Always train at this pulse rate, trying not to decrease it and not to increase it too much. Then you achieve the same amount of cleansing in that time. That's all. So any exercise can be calculated in this way. You can calculate the depth of cleansing for any exercise. So an elliptical machine can be recommended for people with disabilities, cerebral palsy, autism. They can be advised to do cleansing in different other ways. Now, something a bit more exotic, I'll give you some cool tips. For example, take some special straps that can allow you to hang by your feet. Then you can do an exercise on wall bars. You should fix your feet on the bars, secure them above, and slowly lower down and hang upside down. Or use a special machine, an inversion table that can flip over. First, you secure your feet while standing. Then you start to slowly flip over and hang upside down. And remember, when a person hangs upside down, a passive static cleansing happens quite intensely, and the speed of this cleansing is very high. It takes roughly 1 to 1.5 minutes to cleanse one energy layer. And if you hang, let's say, for 7.5 minutes, then 5 energy layers are passively cleansed. This is a cool exercise, by the way, because passive static cleansing, especially upside down, is also a very effective cleansing. Now, let's say a person can't stand at all, they just don't have the ability. They're going crazy, their static tension is off the charts, their whole body is inflamed, they don't know how to live and can't stand on their feet. And the person thinks that they might die soon. Then there's another way out. A person can simply lie in water. Another cool solution is to suggest to the person to kneel a tree on a regular camping chair. Also, in winter, one can put on a fur coat and sit like this. In such cases, the rule is, in 20 minutes, 1 energy layer is cleansed. And if you sit for 1 hour, 40 minutes, all 5 energy layers are cleansed. Because the tree cleanses very powerfully, it penetrates the body very deeply. And all inflammations begin to subside in the body because there's a powerful static cleansing going on. There's also such a thing called pravilo. Nowadays, all sorts of ancient cultures are popular, and people use this pravilo. They tie you by the hands and feet and you hang, your body stretches. In this position, static cleansing also happens very quickly, about 1 to 1.5 minutes per energy layer. So, if you hang for 7.5 minutes, you cleanse all 5 energy layers. Many ask, why are such things necessary? The answer is, they are needed to stretch the body. If you hang upside down, it stretches your spine. It's a very cool exercise, especially if people have issues with their lower back or spine. The entire body stretches because all the muscles pull downwards. Even if someone has radiculitis, they can align their spine through a few sessions of stretching. The muscles stretch, muscle and spinal spasms naturally release. So these options are also available. And if you like extreme activities, there are other exercises that have a different cleansing speed from the usual. For example, if a person does the shoulder stand, the static cleansing in such a pose takes 7.5 minutes per one energy layer. The same goes for the plow pose, or when you kneel and bend backward or bend forward towards your feet. It also takes about 7 minutes for one energy layer. This is a faster and quite intense cleansing. And if a person stands on their head, the cleansing also proceeds quickly, 1 to 1.5 minutes per energy layer, 1.5 minutes to be precise. And when a person does a handstand near a wall, a very fast static cleansing takes place. One energy layer is cleansed in about 1 minute. So this practice is for those who are more physically trained. And I've practiced headstand since childhood, so about 2 energy layers are easily cleansed in about 4 minutes. We developed a treatment methodology, wrote a program in which I will show you where your blockages are located, whether they are static or dynamic, and the presence of toxins, and even illustrate the width of these blockages, and then my assistants will tell you what to do with them and provide consultation. This is a paid service. Well, it's mostly not for you. You all are advanced. You can basically diagnose yourselves without these consultations. But if people seriously need treatment and are ready to undertake asceticism practices, they might consider buying the program. Just some advertising information that we have such a new treatment methodology for cleansing the body. Also, I want to mention that there will be a service related to treatment using trees as well, meaning selecting the tree that best suits a person. I will be doing the selection myself. To learn more on the subject of health and healing of the body, please make sure to read my health guide, available for download on my YouTube channel or on my Instagram page. Thank you very much and see you soon.